We're going to discuss this week's infrared or IR spectroscopy procedure. Overall, you will be running two samples on the IR this week, a liquid sample and a solid sample. Before you do anything, you should get in the habit of cleaning the diamond when you are ready to use the IR. So here's a look at what the top of our IR looks like. In the bottom right hand corner of the slide, you can see in the bottom left hand corner of that image a silver disc, and then inside of that silver disc, a small pinhead. It looks like hole or black dot. That's actually the diamond, which our IR has this modifier on it called a diamond ATR that allows for attenuated reflection of the IR beam through the diamond into our sample. It allows us to use very small amounts of sample and have very little sample prep to do before using the IR. That allows the IRs to run a lot faster than what they normally would. Once you've cleaned off the diamond, you're going to want to open up the Spectrum software that you can find the icon for on the desktop of the computer. And you're going to run the background so that the background can be removed from your final IRs that you're taking. As is implied by the word subtracted or removed, basically the diamond itself, as well as the atmosphere in the room where the instrument is, would have some type of IR spectrum. If you don't subtract the background out of your samples, then you will see not just your material's IR spectrum, but also the diamond and the atmosphere. So you want to be able to subtract this background out. And Travis and Olivia made videos that are up on Moodle that kind of describe this process of going through and actually shows you how to do all of this. After you've taken the background, you're going to run your first sample. You can do liquid or solid sample first. It doesn't really matter what order you do them in. You will choose to subtract the background, take your sample, take your spectrum, and then add it to the window when it asks. You will then go up to the upper toolbar and select Find Peaks so that you can read the wave number, and the units for wave numbers are, of course, centimeter to the -1 for your most significant peaks. Okay, you'll want to save your spectrum. You should start bringing flash drives to lab so that you can save them digitally and put them into your lab reports or upload them to Moodle. The printer that the IR is hooked up to can be a little tricky, and it honestly takes more time to print sometimes than it does to run your entire IR. You will, of course, want to clean the diamond and then run your second sample and repeat the analysis process. I recommend that once you're done, you close out of the software. That way, the next person has to go through the process of taking their own background and all this kind of stuff. Typically, backgrounds are good for about 30 minutes, but once you closed out, the background is deleted out of kind of the memory of the software. So you would want to run your own background. If you leave the software open for a long time, while the background is still good, the software gets bogged down with all the spectrums that you've taken. So it starts to not add your spectrums and find peaks quite as well as what it did initially. One thing of note, if you do, when you do your solid sample, you're going to want to make sure to swing this arm over that you see in the image and swing it over, and it has kind of a locking position right in the middle of that diamond. And then you'll use the blue knob to crank down to allow you to get a good interface between the diamond and the solid. Liquids make a great interface regardless, but solids, that your crystal sizes are different. So you're going to crank down on the blue knob. Once it gets tight, you'll hear one pop, and then you ultimately want to hear 3 click, click, clicks. So the first one and then 2 more, and that assures you that you have the right amount of space between the diamond and this little pedestal that you're cranking down. Potential errors for this lab: not taking a background, okay, and that will be very obvious. Your IR will not look at all like what you're expecting it to look like. Not depressing the solid with a screw clamp, which was what we just discussed and I just reminded you of. If you take too long in between setting up your liquid samples and running your IR, then your liquid sample could evaporate. It depends upon its volatility. Um, if you don't clean the IR in between runs, obviously you could have um, impurities in your IR that would not normally be there. And then, of course, not saving and or printing before you run the next sample. Hopefully, you won't ever forget to do this, but at least in this lab, if that's the case, you can simply rerun your sample. But next semester, you'll be analyzing the material you made, and if you don't have a lot, you don't need to be wasting your sample by just using lots of it for the IR. The last thing that people could potentially have errors with, which we do not see very often, it is possible to change the y-axis from percent absorbance to percent transmission. And basically, this has the effect of inverting the IR. Basically, your peaks for IR should point down like stalactites in a cave, um, not be coming up from a baseline. And that's how you know that the IR y axis is in the right position or has the right label. We have very little waste for this lab. You really only need to cover the diamond with solid and or liquid. So be mindful of that. You don't need to cover that entire metal disc with your solid. This allows us to use very small amounts of compounds, but throw away your chem wipes that you're using to clean the diamond. Put those in the trash, and then pipettes that you're using to dispense the liquid samples go in the broken glass. And there's, of course, a trash and a broken glass container inside the instrument lab. I have uploaded onto Moodle an IR worksheet. It's literally just a typical worksheet where you have to match up spectrum with compounds using either the information in your textbook or tables that I've uploaded to Moodle or the tables that are in the um, theory lecture slides. So you'll do the IR worksheet and you will also write up a protocol that you will be able to use next semester on how to use the IR. Okay, and so this doesn't have to be in any particular format. It's whatever format you like for it to be. Bullet points or 1, 2, 3 numbering for steps might be very useful. But however you want to do it, it needs to be something that you could literally look at and somebody next semester could run an IR efficiently off of your protocol that you upload to Moodle. That's all. It should be a short lab. Good luck.